This episode is brought to you by VW Trends Magazine. Check them out for all the latest trends in the VW scene at www.vwtrendsmagazine.com. Good morning and welcome to the show. My name is Sean Smith.
And my name is Prescott Phillips, and this is Brew City Bug Talk.
Hello, welcome back to the show. How's it going today, Prescott?
It's going good today.
Ah, what do we have going on today?
Well, should we talk about our milestones?
Oh, yes. It's very cool. So something awesome happened over the weekend. First off, thank you to all you listeners.
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
Because of you that we've hit this milestone. We have reached
6,000
downloads
since the first of the year. Thank you to all our listeners. It's incredible. It's amazing. Before we started the show, we were going over numbers, and I'm like, why? Who are these people?
Hey, come on now. Let's not insult the listeners yet.
No, I'm amazed at the amount of people, where they're from.
Yes, it's pretty cool. Our tracker shows us locations. Well, it shows us cities around the world.
Around the world, yeah.
And we are on every continent except for South America. That's the only one we haven't.
Really?
Yes, we haven't.
Is Brazil South America?
Yes, but we're
in Brazil.
No, we don't have any listeners in Brazil yet.
Oh, yeah, that's because we're not in Espanol.
I don't speak.
We're gonna have to get this translated.
Yes, we're gonna have to bring in our translator guest and have a episode. But the thing is, we wouldn't understand anything he's saying.
Yeah, he could be totally butchering it, and we would have no idea. Well, we'd have a little bit of an idea.
But anyways, we reached 6,000 downloads. So thank you very much to all you listeners out there all around the world.
Yeah, tell all your friends how much fun you have listening to our podcast. And all you got to do is ask, hey, do you listen to podcasts? And if they say yes, well, you got to listen to this one because it's worth listening to.
And something cool I've set an astronomical goal for ourselves is I want to try and push to 10,000 downloads before the end of the year.
An unattainable goal.
Well, hey, it's good to have big goals.
You got to aim high.
Aim high.
Like the Air Force, aim high.
Exactly. So, hey, listeners out there, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your grandma, tell your grandpa, tell everybody about our podcast because we want to try and hit the 10,000 download mark before January 1st, 2025. That would be so amazing, and it would be awesome of you guys to help us out with that.
Yeah, it'd be great, and it'll parlay into more things for the coming year. Yes.
Coming up next year,
we game planned.
We game planned today. We don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet, but
we game planned next year.
Next year already, we are planning to go bigger and better at this whole talk.
This is all the.
Yep.
Can you hear the paper?
Yep.
Those are notes for next year.
But thanks again for listening, for tuning in every couple of weeks and listening to our awesome stories.
Right.
All right. What else do we have going on?
Well, I think
Weekend.
This week,
yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wednesday already. I forgot. I was thinking
Wednesday. We're supposed to go to Stewart's Beach Shop. Tanner and Adam's shop in Rockford. Because Dan Ledbetter from VW Trends is on his, what does he call it? His road trip. He tours the United States, hitting all the shops.
Yeah, I think it's called Where's Dan At?
Where's Dan, right? Where's Dan at? So he's supposed to be at Stewart's Beach Shop on Wednesday, and we're going to...
make the trek down there.
Yeah, Adam's shop isn't that far away, less than 2 hours. So we'll cruise down there. We'll try to do a podcast or something down there with either Dan or Adam.
We'll try and get out the whole group. And
that would be,
everybody.
Adam's got this cool, great big round table in the middle of the shop that everybody's, there's chairs on, and they have lunch and stuff at it. But it ends up being a big BS session. So
maybe we can record it, and we'll have some good material.
And we'll have Dan, and we have new microphones. So
yeah, we have an extra mic, so we won't have to lay down.
Yeah, everybody won't have to spit into one microphone. But that's the plan on Wednesday.
So hopefully that'll pan out. And obviously by the time this comes out, that should have happened already. So that might be the next episode.
That would be cool.
Well, that might, we'll have to figure out the scheduling.
We'll squeeze it in there.
We'll have this one, and then we'll have another one in the can. So
we haven't had one in the can for a while.
We've been flying from the seat.
Yeah, we're just like recording them, sending them out.
Yep.
So,
All right. So who do we have on our show today?
we have a very
special guest.
Special guest, yes. I'm trying to think of the word extinguished. A pillar in the community as far as racing Volkswagens. He's been racing Volkswagens
The longest I've known.
Yeah, so. Longer than I have.
We have this, not to age you, but you are our oldest guest, and you have been doing this the longest.
He's the most experienced.
Most experienced. Today we have Vic Frazzell. Did I pronounce that last name? Did I butcher it?
Frazzell.
Frazzell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said.
He butchers every last name.
That's my thing. So, welcome to the show, Vic. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing fine.
So, Vic,
I'm looking forward to this.
Who are you? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm sort of dyed in a wool Volkswagen. I got to it through a number of steps. I started off in L.A. We moved to Texas, Florida, and then ended up north here. And I started getting into racing with my brother back when it was like 61 and 62. We raced a TR3 until...
What is a TR3?
Triumph.
Okay.
And he hangs on to cars too. He's 59. He still has it.
He still has it.
And it's a...
Good for him.
Grand National champion with... Antique Auto Club.
Nice.
I was sort of following in his steps. He had a 64 Beetle that he bought new.
He doesn't still have that car, too.
No. He doesn't hang on to him as long as I do. I rode with him in it. I was looking to get something a little bigger, but I thought, this thing is kind of cool, you know? I started looking around when I was ready for a different car. I had a 58 Chevy at the time, and I ended up at a dealer in Racine VW.
Okay.
Right.
So that kind of ties into our first question. We usually ask our guests, like, what was your first Volkswagen?
The 64?
The first one was a new 66 1300. I thought, I got a big engine car, you know, I had a 1300.
Yeah, right. Well, that's what Volkswagen had to keep upping the horsepower to keep up with the rest of the, rest of the world. Yeah, the rest of the manufacturers.
So what year again was this?
It was a 66.
So 1966.
And I bought it in December of 65.
Okay.
Wow.
It was one of the first cars that came in.
Mm-hmm.
Nice red one, We'd traveled a lot with it. We had it all the way to Key West. My wife and I loaded it up with diving gear and camping gear. And I used to do a lot of diving. I started when I was about 15. I got certified.
Oh, like Peter Kay.
Yeah.
Used to dive a lot until the racing bug kind of hit me.
Yeah, something's
going to give. And I decided to stay above the surface after that.
Yeah.
So what ultimately ended up happening to that car?
I ended up, when we were expecting our first child, we decided we'd get a little bigger car for all of the baby stuff and everything.
Yeah, it's hard to jam your kid and all that stuff in the backseat of a Volkswagen Beetle.
I don't know. We've heard stories.
Oh,
about,
I'm not saying it's impossible.
Oh, you
but
can do it.
Yeah,
sure.
you can do it.
People are always like, I remember sitting in the way back in the luggage compartment.
Yeah, with their head bouncing off against the back window.
We had practice with that too later on, but we ended up getting a 142 Volvo, and that worked so well for us. It even was my tow car in the beginning years.
Yeah.
And I ended up actually working at Racine Volkswagen.
Really?
I went in for an oil change, and one of the guys had left, and they said, would you be interested? So I said, okay, and I was there for 20 years.
Yeah. That was the 66?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first new one I had, but I had, over the years, I had about, 16 or 18.
That's a pretty good number.
That's actually a pretty good number compared to
some guests.
Some of our guests are the average number on the people that are not in a industry of buying and selling or a mechanic shop or something like that is usually around 10.
You beat that. Usually it's 8 or 10 if, just for the average guy that's,
kind of into this hobby.
Yeah, into it.
Lifestyle.
So how many have you owned at once?
At one time.
Because there's always a number where they all converge. They you run out of
probably
places to
about
park.
5.
Yeah, did you all run?
Yeah. Sure. I only had one that wasn't super drivable, and that was a 57.
Okay.
But
Crash box, tranny, all
yeah,
wonky.
it was painted black with a white stripe. It looked like a rolling skunk.
Wow. Yeah. That was the trouble with the earlier cars. This 60 and older, 1960 and older, they all had non-synchro transmissions, and that was a real downfall of those.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you could get a synchro transmission in them, oh my God, it was like, or I thought they were driving an automatic at that time.
Was it just like hard to shift? Or
Yeah, you would. There was no synchros.
No synchro on first gear, so it was a crash box.
Yeah.
I explain a crash box to me.
If
Well,
you
that's what
were-
they called it, because when you stuck it in first gear, it
It just went.
crashed. It ground.
The gears it just grind.
Oh, okay.
It just ground in. And people are impatient, so they're coming up to a stop sign. They're impatient. They don't wait till the car stops rolling, and they just jam it in first gear.
No.
And pretty soon it doesn't like doing that anymore, and it won't even stay in first gear when you're taking off. But Volkswagen fixed all that, and that was the nice thing about Volkswagen. They were always improving.
Yeah.
Every couple of years something got better, and it wasn't just a safety thing or people complain about the windows too small. We'll make the windows bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, that thing's too slow. We'll make the motor bigger. Oh, this thing, and as the models went on, everything got better. More horsepower, better brakes. They got padded dashes and headrests, and oh my God, it was like a modern car.
Yeah.
But back in the day, they were like Flintstone mobiles, like nothing.
What's your? This is kind of off the wall. I didn't send you these a question. What's your favorite version of the Beetle? Like, because you sound like you've owned like many different.
Yeah. What's your
generations.
favorite year?
What's your favorite year that you preferred?
The most popular answer is
There's probably two. In the early years, the 67 sort of
that was
stood
like
out. It just
that's because it had the most improvement.
Yeah, they had the 1500 engine.
12 volts.
They went to the 12 volt, with the open headlights for better lighting, and they just went like stink. They were just fast cars.
That was the second best selling year was the 67. 68 was the best selling year, but 67 was the best selling year because of the improvements. And I think Volkswagen got a taste of, oh, these things are getting popular because we
listen to you guys. And
we're improving these things.
Yeah.
So 68 was the huge improvement over a 67 with the padded dash and the headrests. And
so what was your second favorite year or version of it?
Well, I would have to say probably my all-time favorite is a 68 because that's what my race car is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It had the wider axles in the back and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
68 was another transition year. They still had swing axles. Last year was a swing axle, but they were long axle.
It didn't have the original style bumpers anymore. It was a big blade bumper instead.
No overriders. Yeah, everything changed. Headrest
seats, which a lot of people didn't like.
Yeah,
no.
Prescott's not a fan of those.
No, the 68, 69 headrests were... And Volkswagen listened because they only made those 2 years. Those headrests were like 3 feet wide. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
They gave you a couch to relax.
Well, you
on.
couldn't see behind.
You don't need to see behind when you have a
looked
couch.
in the mirror and all you saw was headrest.
You're going forward. What's behind you?
So then in 71, they narrowed up the headrest. They made it just as wide as a head.
They're like, wow, this is dangerous. We should probably allow our drivers to see behind us.
But yeah, in 68, got the bigger taillights and... a lot of things were mandated for safety reasons. Seat belts.
So what was the longest Volkswagen that you have owned?
The longest term that I've had?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not the longest, like, in feet or...
A limousine.
Who said that? Our last guest
my
was like...
Passat's the longest one. But I've had the race car for 50 years now.
50
Okay.
years.
Just over 50 years.
Well, that's got to be
Well,
right.
that's going to kind of bring us into our next question is, you mentioned this race car. What kind of racing do you do?
I do vintage racing now. I started out with, it's road racing or circuit racing, they may call it. Never did any drag racing ever.
Okay.
I got interested in it because my brother and I did the TR3 back in the 60s. And then after military years were over, then I started doing stuff again.
Year do you think you started racing? The Beetle.
Probably from 66 on, I always had a Beetle.
Was it a race car / street car? Or was it purpose-built race car? Because right now it's purpose-built, right?
Yeah.
But back then, you were like, it was street legal yet?
Yeah. In fact, the race car technically is street legal.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up, I picked up for $50, I got a 60 Beetle.
Mm.
It was hurting, obviously. I ran across a wrecked 356 Porsche.
Oh, yeah.
So
And
I bought the engine, all four
It had a Super
brakes.
1600 in it?
It was a 1600 normal, but it turns out when I took it apart, the first time it had been worked over, the heads had been ported and everything.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that one I had the full 356 instruments, had a racing seat, roll bar, adjustable front suspension, the old Select-A-Drop, which I think
Right, Select-A-Drop, sure.
I drove that some on the street, but I built it. I wanted to race, but I wasn't quite ready for that yet. I started doing autocrosses. We had a lot of autocrosses in Milwaukee.
Back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Every parking lot had a race on Sunday.
Well, you could run. I ran as many as 3 different events on a weekend.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
There was one club that did them on Friday night, one Saturday, and one Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so that car I would drive most of the time, but I'd tow it farther away. We went down to a thing called the Portage Grand Prix in Indiana. And there I towed it down there. I had a lot of fun with that over the years, but then when I got the 68 to do a race car, I ended up selling that, partly because in the racing classes...
Oh, it wouldn't fit anything. Or put you into some crazy class.
Crazy is right.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of running with other VWs, and there were a ton of Volkswagens racing back then.
Yeah.
They bumped me into what was called Sedan 5, which was in with Camaros, Mustangs, and
you're racing V8s and you're
you ended up in a class with full tilt race cars.
Yeah, it was
slicks
a difficult thing, and I thought, this is stupid.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Right.
It was dangerous, is what it was.
Where were these races? Were these still like in different club racings, or were these actually at tracks?
This was actual racing at Blackhawk Farms Raceway. Okay. They were going a lot faster than I could go.
Well, that straightaway on Blackhawk, you better have some horsepower coming into the first turn, because that straightaway is way longer than it needs to be. Wow. And that's where all the fast straight line cars would just blow by anything that handled. Yeah. You know, the big block vets and all that would just drop a gear and just pass you up. And then it's like, but then they had to slow down for turn one.
Oh, yeah.
So you ended up selling, you sold it with the motor and all? You didn't save the cool stuff out of there?
Everything went, and it ended up getting used to make a Speedster replica.
Oh, that's good.
It was a natural. It had everything for it already.
Yeah. Right. If you had to save the brakes and all that.
Does that thing still exist today? You got any clue on where it is? Or
no, I don't know where it ended up.
So many of them 356s ended up getting parts out because they either got wrecked or they got
rotted out.
Yeah, they rusted away.
They just dissolved is what they did.
Yeah, they were so poorly preserved from the factory. I don't think they painted half of them bare metal. So and then the engines ended up in Beetles and buses and.
Yeah, we had Peter K on the show, and he said he scrapped out at least 6 or 7 of those, and he would just pull the motors and the steering boxes out of them.
Right. For off-road stuff.
Take it and trash them.
Yeah, the ZF steer box and all that.
Yeah, it's sad because I would have taken any one of them.
Yeah, back then they were just...
They're throwaway cars.
All those cars were throwaway cars. Any of those little economy cars were just throwaway cars. Even if they were sports cars, like a TR3 or whatever, they didn't really worry about how good they were being made, because they go, this guy's just going to sell it in 2 years anyways.
Yeah. It was, $2,700 for something like that.
Yeah.
A friend of mine bought a 55 Speedster, brand new, and he never raced, and he decided, I'm going to go racing. So they used to have SCCA races at the Milwaukee Mile,
right?
The infield. And he said he had qualified really good. Surprised him, just running regular tires, no roll bar, nothing,
Right.
And he said he came down and he got the flag, and as he approached the first turn, the turn into the infield, he said he was so nervous that his foot was shaking on the pedal, and he overshot it. And he came back and he got his bearings straight, and he ended up winning that race. But they asked him what was wrong at the beginning, and he said, I don't know, it must have been the carburetors.
Yeah, right.
And he'd wear it out. I think there were just 560/15 tires on it.
Yeah.
And he just completely wore out these Sears tires.
From one race?
It was a race.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and by his place, didn't like all the turning and stopping.
Yeah. And he went back to Sears and he said, something wrong with these tires. And they gave him another set. He did the same thing to the second set. They said, no, we're not going to give you another
we're not
set.
trusting you on this.
Something is not right here.
Nothing wrong with these tires.
But that was kind of an unusual occasion for him. But
Yeah.
there again, he paid, I don't know if he even paid $3,000 for it.
Right.
That is crazy. Back to your Volkswagen, you bought this brand new, or you bought this new Beetle for racing. Like, all right, so how did it come? Or
I didn't buy it new.
I'm sorry. Well, new to you is what I meant.
Yeah.
So new to you, Beetle for racing. What you said? What year was it again?
It's a 68.
68. Now, what was done to it? Was it a stock vehicle that you had built up, or what did you all have to make for you to race in the classes that you wanted to race?
Pretty much everything. It was a stock car, but a young guy came in and he wanted to get rid of the car, ended up trading it, and he had sideswiped one side. It was sitting there in the trade-in lot with this damage on it, and they had pulled the engine out of it. So it was sitting, that was it, you know.
So it was like a rolling shell with body damage.
Yeah. And
But the car was only a couple of years old.
I ended up, the guy still had the title to the car, and he said, well, I don't know if I really know what to ask for. He said, my girlfriend's got a bug, and her seats are all tacky. And he said, have you got any low back seats? So I traded him 2 low back seats and got the car.
Sure.
Very cool.
And
I wish I could trade a set of seats for
it was
Beetle
common.
right now.
It was common back then because you know, all the parts were interchangeable for most part, and especially seats, and seats just slid in.
Yeah.
And it was easy. I mean, a lot of people like the horse trade stuff and not have any money exchange.
I still try to do it today, but it doesn't work out. So
Well, that's
I'm
because
talking about you, Mike. You didn't want any of my crap.
Yeah, as far as, your question is in setting it up to get it ready, at the time I was a service manager at Racine VW. The boss he was involved with racing as well, Volkswagen. In fact, he was one of the first guys I met that was racing a Volkswagen. He gave me my own lift hoist. The car just stayed there, and I could do whatever I needed to. He gave me a lot of tips on setup and trying to make the best out of the engine.
So what class were you racing? Was this all stock motor class, or were you...
It was pretty, you could blueprint the engine, but you couldn't do anything. You could use any carburetor that you could fit onto the stock manifold.
Okay.
And it was, at that time, it was a single port engine limit. And so I built that thing up.
So this was a 1500cc motor?
It was a 1500.
Okay.
Yeah.
All blueprinted. Were you able to do anything to the heads? Port them?
You couldn't really port them, but you could match the ports to the manifold.
Okay.
And the valves. Just get a smoother flow, but you couldn't go in there and truly port the heads.
they let you knock the compression up, right?
You could fly cut the heads.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do much of that. Some of the stuff you get the compression too high and then it'd break. Then I gradually went through changes as the rules changed from that Volkswagen sedan class. It went into Midwest Console had sedan classes, they called them, 1, 2, 3, 4, based on your engine size and that. And in sedan 2, you could run a 1600 with dual port. You could use dual carbs,
Or was there any limit to the size of the...
30 over.
Okay.
And which is, in vintage, it's pretty much the same, although I think there's a lot of stretching of the...
Yeah,
I think it's 130 thousandths over a lot of these guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of don't ask, don't tell kind of things going on.
Yeah.
I was telling Sean here that some of the SCCA stuff, it's pretty much like stock appearing, because they're not going to tear your motor down. There's no money in this. They're taking your word for it, what you have, And then some people like to cheat and some people don't, right? Some people want to win no matter what. Cheating is racing, and some people go, well, why don't I just buy the car that's faster? instead of cheating up my old, what I have now to try to beat these other guys that have stock stuff. And I know they're, what they have is stock because I'm beating them by a good amount. So that's kind of the downfall. And then I explained that to Sean. That's kind of how it worked.
Yeah.
You couldn't show up with a giant stroker motor. They threw you in an unlimited class, and that was that. So you try to squeak in what you could, and if it looked stock and you run it stock enough times.
So that's what you moved up into, was the 2 class, is that what you called it?
Yeah, Sedan 2.
Sedan 2. So that's 1600 motors. You're allowed dual carbs. Are you allowed to bump up the internals, or is it supposed to stay at
you were still, at that time, you were pretty limited.
Yeah, I think you still had to run a stock cam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stock cam, stock pistons, stock crank.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Now were there ways to massage some of that stuff, or that was pretty much the class?
Well, you could do certain things, and I don't know that it made a huge difference for you to speak of.
No, a good driver could make up for a lot of, performance disadvantages just because he knew how to drive.
Yeah.
That was the newbies always had to cheat their way into the faster times.
Were you building out your transmissions at the time, or were you just running stock transmissions?
I just had a stock transmission at the time.
Okay.
Later, I tried. Actually, I had a transmission from before that had a 486 rear end for autocrossing.
Right.
But you rev too high on a road course.
Yeah, on a road course, you put it in 4th gear, and you're looking for 5th and 6th gear.
Yeah, well, I still look for 5th gear.
Yeah, it's hard when you only have 4 gears to choose from. You got to choose them wisely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you can play around with the gears more, like a 356.
Yeah.
The guys I run now in vintage are in the same group, and they take a 4-speed and they can eliminate first and start 2nd gear, 3rd, 4th, and then they put a 5th gear ratio in.
I'd like to explain to you that 1st and 2nd are pretty much set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's very little you can do with 1st and 2nd because they're on the same shaft, and it is what it is. So you basically got 3rd and 4th to play with, and the ring and pinion.
Mm-hmm.
So make that combo work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that and the fact that he's racing like a class where he can't put a 5-speed transmission.
No.
Volkswagen didn't make a 5-speed transmission.
I still can't, even in the vintage racing. It's an interesting thing where I see other guys in the group that have cars that were 4 speeds, but they get around it somewhere because maybe they offered a overdrive at some point. Mm-hmm. One of the guys had a Quaife transmission.
Sure.
And they have dog boxes and all this stuff.
Yeah, right. Faceplated gears and all that. Yeah. That's not nowhere near stock.
No.
Yeah. You could get, and even the limited slip stuff from Europe never really trickled into the United States as far as the factory stuff goes.
Right.
I mean, I've never seen one in all my years.
Hey, I've been hunting them out. I've been trying to.
I've
find
seen
them.
pictures of them. That's all I've seen. I've never never tore apart a gearbox. I actually had one.
Well, if any of our listeners out there have one that they want to donate to us so that we can actually see it and play with it, send it our way.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you're shorter tracks, the gearing works out really good. But at Elkhart, and I've raced 40 different weekends at Elkhart.
Well, you just run out of gears.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work on the car. They've gradually changed the rules, eased them up. You can you can use any cam. You can do head work to an extreme, or not to an extreme, but you can do head work. You can use a better crank to keep it alive.
Oh,
sure.
Counterweighted
crank.
They went to dual carbs where you'd use 2 1-barrel carbs. Cadrons I was using, and they were kind of a pain. I never liked the Cadrons.
No, they have their limitations.
Yeah.
Tuning wise.
For me anyway, they did. And then the grand finale was they came out and allowed Weber carburetors, and I put Webers on right away, and it was like a different car.
What'd you go to? Dual 44s or?
Yeah, 44s.
Okay.
40, yeah.
They said a 40 would probably run nicer, but I said I don't care too much about what it does, and first gear. I'm interested in
when I
in
got
breathing.
when you got your foot to the floor is what you want to hear about. And people don't understand. Even a 1600 will live with 44s or 48s even. If you have the right size chokes in them and the right jetting, they work.
Yeah.
You know, it's never too much if it's tuned right.
Yeah. And especially for racing, like, I mean, you're
Yeah,
on
you
the track. You're not driving it to the grocery store. So.
Yeah, you don't care about what it's doing at 2,500 RPM.
You can't have any bogging down or hesitation. It's got to be bam. It's got to be there.
Yeah, you got to be on it. Right?
And the 44s work really quite good for me. In fact, I talked to the Bergs out in California about doing 48s instead of 44s. And he said for my usage, I would have trouble getting away from hesitation.
Right.
After
you probably have more peak horsepower, but your power band would be very peaky.
Yeah. So I went with the 44s, and I've not been disappointed at all.
Right.
So what's your setup right now that you run? And this year, what did you go out? Describe your motor start to finish.
Well,
you don't have to tell us any of your secrets.
Don't tell us any of your secret sauce.
It's not.
We're gonna believe whatever you tell us.
We don't want to get you in trouble here with the SCCA or anything.
I got an 8-liter.
Yeah.
No, it's basically a legal engine. I have a counterweighted crank, forged pistons, which I found out the hard way. You don't use a cast piston.
No, they come apart.
Yeah,
because I blew one to smithereens in turn 12 at one race. It came in, it was running great, downshifted to third to pull out of turn 12. It just made this little beep, beep, and I looked and the oil pressure was dropping a little bit. Shut it off, coasted to the side, and when we pulled it out and took it apart, the crank was okay. Everything else was junk.
Yeah.
They just grenaded everything at that point?
Just piston skirt usually starts.
Heads were damaged. The case ended up with a crack. The cam was damaged. Everything.
Ouch.
So we basically started from scratch. I got one of the last large oil passage cases from Gene Berg. We started all over again.
Right.
And this is the motor you're running right now. So it's a Gene Berg case, counterweighted crank, forged pistons, stock.
Did they let you go big valves?
You can do some.
Because you could get the 039 Mexican heads with the bigger exhaust or the bigger intake valve, the alcohol heads.
Yeah.
And that's what was legal because it's a Volkswagen part number.
Right. So that's basically what I'm doing.
Where's the cam from? You said you can go bigger cam.
It's an Engel.
Okay.
A 125.
I got one sitting downstairs. You like that cam? The stock rockers?
I haven't, I've tried 110s. They weren't enough.
Right.
And then I wanted to try something different. I used that cam with ratio rocker arms.
Right.
Works quite good.
Yeah, right. Nice. A real popular setup back in the day was a 120 and 125 ratio rockers. We all ran that for some stupid reason. And it was real similar to an FK8 with 1.4s. The numbers the lift and the duration were real similar. But it's a little easier on the valve train because the ratio wasn't so crazy.
Yeah.
It's easier on push rods. But I have a 125 downstairs. I don't know where it came from. It's brand new in the box, and I don't know what to do with it.
Well, if you need a cam, he's got you.
Yeah, I got you a spare cam if you need one.
Keep it in mind.
I mean, the Engel cams are getting to be rare now.
Yeah.
Now that they've been bought out multiple times. I don't know who's making them now.
Everything is changing so much lately.
Everybody's getting bought out by somebody else, and it either dies or it carries on, and some
MP buys everything.
Yeah, well,
that's true.
They have to buy it or lose their supplier.
That's true.
The supplier goes out of business. It's like, well, what's your choice? Go to some other supplier or just buy out this guy?
Well, no, thank goodness that MP's buying them out because otherwise we, as the
consumer,
would lose it.
And then as the cam manufacturers disappear, the price goes up.
Yep.
Because there's less people making them.
Oh yeah.
And I can't believe the price of cams has doubled. I mean,
well, everything's doubled and tripled since you started in the industry. So
well,
for me, it stayed the same because I got in so late into the game that
everything's expensive for you.
Yes.
Things were affordable even at a low income in those days.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. $50 cam.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was easy to buy.
All right. So back to your vehicle. What transmission are you running in it? You said it's not a stock transmission, or
I just run a regular transmission. I'm using a 4-125 final drive, which I should probably change to a 388.
Mm-hmm.
And I put in close ratio third and fourth, which helps a lot. That's about it on the transmission. Nothing real trick. One of the nice things they finally allowed us to do when I started racing, with the drum brakes.
Yeah.
You start making some laps and you start getting heat.
And the pedal's going further and further to the floor.
The pedal's going away. And in fact, the pedal, I learned how to drive without brakes because they didn't work.
Right, yeah. You would just stand on them and nothing's happening.
Nothing.
And
you pump them until your leg fell off. But they finally came out and allowed you to put
disc
brakes on as long as they were Volkswagen.
Okay.
Yeah. So you put Gia spindles on.
I got Gia spindles and calipers.
Nice.
And I put them on, and that worked good. But I still had to be adjusting the rears and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then they opened that up, so now I got
4-wheel discs.
discs all the way around, and I can go way late into the corners compared to some of the guys.
Yeah, it's nice to have, and it's just a safety thing.
Oh yeah.
Why wouldn't That's what I didn't understand, why they dragged their feet. The cars are going to get faster. Yes, they're going to get faster lap times, but in a panic situation, at least you can stop the thing.
Yeah.
And it's dumb to take away that. Now, is there a weight limit on your car?
Yeah, it's crazy low.
Is it?
It's like 1450 or something like that.
With you in it?
And I know guys that have gone in. A good friend of mine went in with a hole saw and just started chopping metal out of the
it's like,
car.
I need to make weight. Let's just start cutting holes in things.
And, he took the headliner out, and there's like a double panel up along the roof.
Yeah, so they're drilling holes in that.
Pulled that and made that Swiss cheese.
Well, that's all weight. That's weight up high. That's bad,
Yeah. Never could get it anywhere near the weight.
So you destroyed this car for nothing, then.
Well, he wasn't removing any considerable weight. You got to drill through the tunnel where it's thicker metal.
Where the most reinforcement is.
Yeah, most structure is. You got to drill holes in that.
Might have a nicer ride. It flexes.
Yeah, it twists
it
around.
It really flexes into those corners.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so what would you say would be, so you've been racing how many years now?
50
years. What's your most memorable race that you've been involved in that you can... I don't think I sent you this question, but I just thought of it. So, hey, I'm putting you on the spot.
As far as a competitive race where I was running nose to tail and switching back and forth constantly was a race at Mid-Ohio. And
what year? Kind of give me... Make up one if you can't remember. Our listeners aren't going to know.
Old age has set in in the 90s.
Okay.
Early 90s. That was just satisfying because of the way we were racing together.
The closeness of the...
But probably the one that sticks in my head the most is in 2015, I was invited to the Brickyard Invitational, it was called. It's a vintage race that SVRA puts on, and it's done at Indianapolis on the
road course.
Formula One road course.
Oh, wow.
And that was a real kick. They allowed us one afternoon, they shut down the regular course, and they opened it up so we could lap the Indy Oval. One of the surprising things, I came around turn 2 after you come out of the pit and you come around there. You come around turn 2 and you can't see 3.
No, it's so far away.
It's forever,
Yeah, right.
And I'm thinking, I can't hold it down flat. It's going to just blow up, So I held it to, like 6,000, 6,200 on the straight. But you could just put your foot down in the corners. The track almost drives the car.
Yeah, the banking and everything.
You get down into the apex at 3 and the car just goes down.
Wow.
And then you just come right up alongside the wall, and then it dives down again. And you see them in the races at 500, for instance, when you see the Indy cars come out of 4 and then they sort of snake in towards the pit wall. Mm-hmm. The Beetle did that too. It just follows that.
It follows the change in the banking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool. But the highlight was in my group race. They had us in with Formula Vs, and there's a number of cars. And a Formula V and I were going back and forth. And on the last lap, as I came out of the last turn towards start-finish line, I pulled him, so I ended up winning
Nice.
the race at Indy. So that was quite a highlight for me.
Cool.
That's very cool. Are you still racing? Have you raced this year at all?
I did a track day this year. I raced a couple times last year, but I ran into an issue where they came out with a ruling on tires. Now you can only run a certain number of brands of tires. You can't use a 50 series. It has to be a 60 series. And I've used Yokohamas for a long time. They work really well on the VW.
Right.
And
Not the 008s, right?
well, 008s, I have a pair I use for rain tires.
Okay.
But the 008 has been gone for a long time.
Right. That's what we used to run way back in the day.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the legal tires.
That tire you can't get anymore.
I got the last set from Tire Rack, I don't know how many years ago it was.
Tire rack.
And I made them into rain tires. The other one also is not made anymore.
Oh,
And my tire is legal in the one class up from mine.
okay.
I run in what's called Group 2,
Yeah, and you
which is basically four-cylinder. 356s, Triumphs, Heelys, the Sprites, Midgets, Minis, and one Volkswagen.
one lone Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Hey, at least you're out there still doing it.
Yeah. Right.
Somebody's got to represent for us. So they changed the tire class. So you didn't run this, or you just did a track day. You didn't race it all this year. Are you planning on getting back out there next year?
Well,
are you going to bite the bullet and buy these tires, or
Well, the only tires I can use are 1,300 a set now, and they don't last very long.
How many tire sets do you usually go through for the season?
I can run a couple of years on tires.
How many races? I guess I should ask that first. How many races do you race in a season?
I used to run, I would say through the early 2000s, I was running 6, maybe 7 races a year.
And how many did you end up doing last year?
2.
2? Okay.
It's still pretty good though.
But if you look at it, the entry fees used to be $275, $300.
Per race?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are now $1,000.
Right.
For one race?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the insurance.
And then you still have to, on top of that, you still need to
Well,
buy
then
the
you
tires
get-
and
you
all
get-
the other.
Nicked for extra insurance to protect the track and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Between
if
the
you
insurance
have,
and the safety, they keep upping all the safety, how many people you need there, and their equipment, and it just gets.
But don't they understand that they're pricing themselves out of the sport? I mean, you want people to come to your track. You can't raise the prices if you don't have cars.
They're pricing a lot of the guys out. We used to have just a vast number of privateers, so to speak, guys that work in their garage at home, have a job they do during the day, and then they go racing on the weekend. And those guys are disappearing.
Yeah, they have to. Now, it seems like the guys that are racing now they're all business owners.
Yeah.
They're sponsored.
They're
self-made millionaires.
Right, yeah, they got money. They own their own businesses. They might have sold their own business.
Yeah.
They got money.
They come in, the cars are maintained by someone, and then they're delivered to the track, and they just show up.
Yeah, they fly in and fly out.
In fact, after I retired on a Friday night, and Monday morning I woke up and I thought, what am I going to do now? I was used to working 12, 13 hours a day, and so I called this friend of mine that had a shop. It was Yard Racing. It's a vintage preparation and support business. I said, do you still need some help? He said, sure. You want to start this fall or something? Because I retired at the end of July. And I said, how about I start next Monday? So I went back to work. I worked there for another 9 years after I retired. And we took care of, we had some Porsches. We had Chevron sports racers. We had Corvettes, we had Boss 302 Mustang, we had a Shelby GT350 serial number 2, which unfortunately got destroyed.
And you're racing these
rare
vintage cars, that tends to happen.
You still got $75,000 for it.
Yeah.
They rebuilt it and took it to Scottsdale and got $225,000.
Yeah, Right, auction it
But,
off.
you know, it wasn't suitable for racing anymore.
No, but it had promenades, so that's kind of a
But
big
the
deal.
serial number was gold.
Right, yeah.
We did all of that, and then I had my stall, and I took care of the Beetle there, kept my trailer there.
Yeah, it's kind of handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So as of right now, are you just working out of your house then? Is that where everything's stored at, or do you still have
right
it?
now, that's...
Okay.
Well, when I'm not running, I store the trailer in the Suburban at a friend's farm in Racine County.
So are you planning on getting back out there next year, or what's
I'd like to.
Okay. Do you have
I might,
sponsorship? We need to find a sponsor for you to help pay for these tires. Hey, if any listeners are out there and want to help support this guy and
help Vic buy a pair
the
of
last
Yeah.
Volkswagen Beetle out on the track,
A GoFundMe page.
there we go.
There you go.
I mean,
Or-
it's sad that we have to come to that,
Or
but I
a
mean,
fish bowl at the bar or something.
we need to have an event and say, buy Vic new tires.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, it's getting to the point. My grandson is just dying to take over the car, and he's 18 now, and he's been at every race
That is
pretty
awesome.
much for his life.
No, that's exactly who you want to take over the car. We want the younger generation.
Right, especially if he's fired up about it.
Yes.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. A lot of these kids, they're like, nah.
They don't care. Like if it doesn't have a turbo on it, they don't care about it. So it's cool to see the younger generation getting involved with the air-cooled vintage Volkswagens.
It's true to keep them going.
Yes.
Right. I don't think they'll ever go away 100% because there's such a...
It's so wide. The people that like Volkswagens is such a vast, like you got the hippies and the campers, and then you got the weekend warriors who just like to go to the car shows, and then you have the guys like you that go to the racetrack. You got the guys like Prescott here, go to the drag strip. It's such a vast amount of people.
Yeah, and they all have
with
one common denominator.
Yeah.
You know, it's an air-cooled Volkswagen engine.
Yes.
So it's very, it's off-roading. It's dune buggies.
We are doing our part right here by creating this podcast, keeping
Yeah,
people
definitely.
interested.
Yeah.
And
And it's weird that a podcast can be based around an air-cooled four-cylinder engine.
I think it's great because it's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's all I've ever known. So
Well, it's nice to see the club that you've developed do what it's doing. You know, there was just no action.
Yes, and
For
the other
so
club that we
long,
don't talk
you know?
about, there was no action. But the VW Collective of Milwaukee is the new club. They've grown so much this year. The amount of shows that they've gone to or put on, and just the involvement in the community is just astronomical. And they're just, the sky's the limit with them. They're just going to keep getting better next year. I'm pretty sure they got their 501c3 status, so they're officially a non-profit organization.
yeah, and they'd like to start a museum.
Yes, the things that they want to do for Volkswagen and the Volkswagen community in Milwaukee area is just, it's amazing. And that's everything the other club was not doing. And the other club has been around 30 years, and they haven't accomplished what these guys have accomplished in 1 year. So that's, to me, hats off to them.
Right. They've done a great job, and it just goes, things evolve, and that's how the clubs in the area have evolved. You know, some of them are stagnant, and some of them are progressive. So
You see the clubs in California, and they're doing things all the time, and there's all kinds of options. And here, unfortunately, there weren't any options.
no, there's very little. Southeastern Wisconsin is not the hot hub of Volkswagen activity.
We are doing our best to make it.
We're doing the best we can, people.
We are doing more for the Volkswagen community in Wisconsin than a lot of people are.
Right. Yeah, we're
Not to pat my own back here. But
don't break your arm there, Sean.
are you okay there?
Yeah,
Don't die on us
I think
now.
I'm gonna make it.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah, I thought one other thing that you might find interesting, in the early days when I was working for the dealership in Racine, we set up a Golf, or actually it was a Rabbit and a Scirocco and an RX-7, and also he had a Ghia coupe, 67 Ghia coupe.
nice.
That thing was a real rocket. You had to run that for a season.
Oh, nice.
And it had I don't know what the exact displacement was. I think it was pretty much a 1600, but it had a Hearth roller crank.
Okay.
And
Back in the roller crank days.
it had a cam that just came on at 3,000 and it would just push you back, you know.
Right.
I just loved driving that car.
Right,
And,
probably had some crazy Norris cam.
Yeah.
What was
he,
it?
he never told me what cam he had in it.
Yeah, them off-road guys loved them Norris cams because they revved to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
It just kept accelerating as long as you kept your foot down until you got scared.
Yeah. Well, the shift point on it was 7,200 all the time.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it just really was fun to drive. And it was a swing axle, but it handled so well.
Yeah.
You know, there was a point in time where the swing axle cars from the VW sedan class all ended up rolling into a ball.
Yeah.
Because
They pulled a chuck.
they just do the tuck,
And then
all of a sudden
on the roof they go.
Oh,
they'd
yes.
bicycle and off you go.
Yes. I didn't pick up where you were going with that, but yes.
Yeah, when you get a swing axle sideways,
Yeah.
that the tires would tuck under and just pitch the car into a roll.
Yeah.
One of our past guests had that same exact story at the drag strip. He went down, he hit the brakes right before the finish line to slow down, and his rear wheels tucked and the car rolled. And Prescott was actually
in
racing.
the other lane.
He was in the other lane. He gets down to the end of the lane, turns around, and sees Chuck's car just
Spinning around
like
on
a
his
top.
roof. Yeah.
He was okay. I mean, obviously, he was on the show.
That
but
was before we learned that you need to limit the travel, the
Yeah.
downward travel,
Mm-hmm.
with straps or whatever. We put straps on, shock bolt to shock
Yeah.
bolt,
Yeah.
and that limited how much it tucked. And then you were, safe,
Yeah.
and it saved a lot of cars.
The Gia just had a camber compensator under it.
Mm-hmm. I
But
think
because of
that,
the
that,
low
that did kind of the same thing as limiting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it got tucked as far with
That's what I always ran, was a camber
the
compensator.
compensator. Yeah.
okay.
But the Gia didn't suffer from that. It was a lower center of gravity. It drove like a Porsche did.
Yeah.
Because they're all swing axle and they go through just crazy fast through
Yeah,
corners.
356, and that was all swing axle its whole life.
Yeah, but I ran that. And the interesting comparison was it was a brand new RX-7, and we had Mazda as well as Volkswagen.
Right, that was pretty common back in the day. That the Volkswagen dealerships had a Mazda dealership as well.
But they wanted to have RX-7s on the track fast, quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to the intro in Michigan. That's the distributorship at the time. We got a RX-7 and brought it back, and then did a fast upgrade to it. We had a roll cage made. One of the bad things is we made a straight pipe.
Oh, just made it the loudest thing on the planet.
You never heard anything louder in your life. And I remember the day we did the exhaust. I worked all day, put it on a trailer and hauled it down with an old travel that we had. Worked all night because in order to get a pipe that wouldn't burn through.
Right, it just melts right through.
Couldn't hardly bend it. The machine couldn't. We worked till 3 o'clock in the morning
Oh my
in this guy's muffler shop.
Yeah, you couldn't use you needed like 1/4-inch
Yeah.
tubing because it would glowed red. It glowed red right away. I mean, it didn't take a while for the header to start glowing. I've had my share of. If I wasn't into Volkswagens, I probably would be into rotaries because I had a couple, and it's like, oh, let's make a choice here, and I picked the Volkswagens over the rotaries.
Well, it was fast. We couldn't run slicks. Had to run in showroom stock at that time. Ran shaved BF Goodrich. The funny thing is, I've lapped Road America in the Beetle 6 seconds a lap faster than I ever turned with the RX-7.
RX-7, yeah.
Nice.
Well,
Just from development and all the other junk I've done,
yeah, it took a while for the that would have been in 79 probably, a 79 RX-7, right? First year. They had some handling issues, but yeah.
They could always tell where I was. My wife was in the pit lane, and she said, I could hear you on the back straight going towards turn 12.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hear. That's probably why I have hearing aids now.
Right? Yeah.
But I came in, and I could hardly hear anything.
That loud.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, the RX-7s had a crazy exhaust system to tone them down, and if you took any of that off, it was quite loud.
All right, so back to the Volkswagen. Do you know your fastest lap time at Road America off the top of your head?
I've turned a 2:59 with it.
Nice.
2:59, sub 3
3
minute.
minute. Very cool. All right, on that note, I think we were going to wrap it up.
All right. Thank you very much, Vic, for showing up, for giving us some history.
Yes, thanks for sharing your story with us.
For being our oldest guest.
I'm
only
quick,
in my 80s with that.
cool little side note I wanted to throw in here. Actually, the first time I met Vic, he almost died, and I kind of saved his life. I mean, I should have brought this up at the beginning of the episode, but we were at the car show of the club that I used to be a part of, and I was secretary at the time, and somebody comes running up to me during the car show and says, Sean, there's somebody over here having a medical emergency. So I run over, and there's this older gentleman sitting at this table in the sun, not moving. And I'm like, sir, are you okay? And you're like, you were all out of it. You're like, no.
Yeah, it was hot.
No, I'm not. And I'm like, okay, let's get you out of the shade. So we moved him in the shade, got him some water, called 911. The ambulance came, took him out of there. And that's the last I ever heard. I never had any follow-up. I didn't know if the gentleman had passed away. You know, it was an older gentleman. So then fast forward a couple months later, we're at Road America. And this is when I was talking about we went with the Volkswagens. And we're walking through looking at all the Formula Vs and all the other cool cars. And we see this Beetle parked there.
That's the guy.
I walk over there and I'm talking to him and shooting the shit about Volkswagens. And then all of a sudden I look at him and I'm like,
you're the guy.
did you almost die at a car show? And he was like, yes. And I'm like, I'm the guy. Hey, I'm glad to see you're alive. So it turned out, yes, you survived to race another day, which was awesome because I'd never known what happened to you after that. And it was great seeing you. Great seeing the fact that you were racing and you were racing Beetles. It was very cool to have met you. I'm glad you came on the show. I'm glad you're still racing. I really hope you get some tires and get back out there next year.
Yeah.
We'll definitely come
buy
to
Vic
one
some
of the events.
tires.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I got that sort of covered a little bit, at least for one race.
Okay. Well, we'll get out there.
Fantastic.
Let us know. Keep us up to date when you're going to race. Hopefully we can come out.
Yeah,
and
maybe
watch
we'll
the
come out and cheer you on.
race. That'd be awesome because it's great seeing the Beetle out on the track.
Right.
I might run down at Blackhawk next year.
Let us know.
Right. Or
Keep in
even any of
touch.
the Midwest Council stuff.
Keep us informed. We can put an update on our Facebook page, on the Bruce City Bug Talk Facebook page, in case any of our listeners want to come out and cheer you on too, or just meet you in general.
Okay.
All right. Once again, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to get a hold of us or you got any questions or comments about today's show, please reach out to us at brucecitybugtalk@gmail.com. Or, like you said, you can reach out to us on Facebook.
BCBugTalk.
That's what I said.
You said Bruce City.
Okay.
Bug Talk.
All right. So if you want to reach out to us,
Just go on Facebook.
Feel free to email us at bcbugtalk@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Or Facebook, like you said.
Facebook Messenger.
Instagram, anywhere. We got a YouTube channel, and that's
Our YouTube is blowing up again.
It's blowing up. It's kind of nice. And don't forget, share our
Yes.
share our podcast with
Definitely
your friends
tell
and
your
family,
friends that,
because we want to push to get to that 10,000 download mark by the end of the year.
that guy in the cubicle next to you.
Yes.
That's listening to something horrible.
Make them listen to this. It's just as horrible, but hey, it'll get us another time.
He'll be laughing twice as hard.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening and have a good day.
Thank you. Peace out.
Thanks.
Don't forget to subscribe to VW Trends Magazine for all the latest and greatest in VWs around the world. Visit VWTrendsMagazine.com to subscribe.